Hey, Mike here. I just wanted to let you know that you can listen to Dark Poutine early and ad-free on Amazon Music, included with Prime. Welcome back to Dark Poutine. I'm Mike Brown, creator, host, and weirdo.
And I'm Matthew.
You are Matthew.
Sidekick.
Important individual with a really awesome dog and cool husband.
Oh, thank you.
I love your family. Your family is a very, very nice thing.
I have a good fam jam.
You do. You do.
The views, information, and opinions expressed during the Dark Poutine podcast are solely those of the producer and do not necessarily represent those of Curious Cast, its affiliate, Global News, nor their parent company, Chorus Entertainment.
Dark Poutine is not for the faint of heart or squeamish. Our content is often intense and some listeners may find it disturbing. We are not experts on the topics we present, nor are we journalists. We are ordinary Canadian schmucks chatting about crime and the dark side of history. Let's get to it. Put on your toque, grab yourself a double-double and a Nanaimo bar. It's time to scarf down some Dark Poutine.
And that's Dark Poutine, not Dark Putin. Stay strong, Ukraine. We stand with you.
That's right. We definitely do. Daleen Kay Bosse was a 26-year-old wife and mother of Cree heritage and member of the Onion Lake First Nation in Saskatchewan near Saskatoon. On May 18, 2004, after a night out with friends, Daleen did not return home. Her family grew worried. When she still hadn't come home the next day, Jeremiah, Daleen's husband, contacted police who initially did not respond with much enthusiasm, telling Jeremiah and Daleen's concerned parents to wait, that she would probably either come home or check in soon. Daleen's family organized searches themselves, and 2 weeks later, Daleen's car was found abandoned. There was no sign of the missing woman. It would be more than 4 years later that Daleen's family would find out what had happened to their missing loved one. Daleen had been murdered by a man named Douglas Richard Hales, who, during a Mr. Big sting, had admitted to killing the woman and then led police to Daleen's charred remains. You are listening to Dark Poutine episode 209, MMIW, The Murder of Daleen Kay Bosse. As with the episode on Lisa Marie Young, much of the information about Daleen Bosse comes from the stories told by her family to the Native Women's Association of Canada, which then shared on their website, nwac.ca. That resource was invaluable in my learnings about Daleen's life. Without the story shared by NWAC, as it is with many victims of crimes, the lives of the victims tend to be overshadowed by what happened to them, and the story of the perpetrator of the crime becomes the main focus. We hope that isn't the case here. On May 25, 1979, Herb and Pauline Muskego proudly welcomed their first child, Daleen Kay Muskego, into the world in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. Daleen's parents had two boys after Daleen, Dana and David. Throughout her life, Daleen was a fiercely protective and supportive big sister to her younger brothers. Daleen's parents, both teachers, wanted to ensure their children were well educated about their heritage and family history. They traveled a lot, too. Residential schools, as with many Indigenous families, are a darker part of their history. Daleen's mom, Pauline, had attended a residential school, as had both of Pauline's parents. Herb's mother had also attended a residential school. It was these experiences that highlighted the importance of the Muskego family ensuring that the ways of their Cree ancestors were passed along to their children and subsequently their children's children.
We talked about this just before we started recording.
Mm-hmm.
You should look it up. The Cree culture is so fascinating.
It really is.
And the design,
Mm-hmm.
like the design language, the traditional design is so beautiful.
Yeah.
Every time I've gone to Saskatchewan, and if I occasionally see women in, I think they call them ribbon dresses. They're so gorgeous.
Yeah.
So learning that culture is important. It's so rich. It's so rich.
And their designs, you've got it written here, they're so bright and happy.
Yeah.
They're really colorful.
It's really colorful.
Yeah.
It's like you look at it and you're like, yeah, that's cool.
Their
right?
beadwork and all that
and,
kind of
and
stuff.
weaving and stitch work. It's gorgeous. Yeah.
The Onion Lake Cree Nation, where Daleen lived with her family, has a long history, some of which you can learn about on their website, onionlake.ca. After inhabiting the land for eons, Onion Lake Cree Nation's colonial origins began when, quote, Chief Seekaskuch's band signed Treaty 6 at Fort Pitt on September 9, 1876, while other River Cree signed an adhesion to Treaty 6 in 1878 as the Makahu Band. The bands received adjacent reserves in 1879. In 1885, they were accused of participating in the Frog Lake Massacre and listed as, quote, rebel Indians. The Frog Lake Massacre came about after a long feud with colonial government representative and Indian agent Thomas Quinn. Quinn was a cruel, racist man who, according to the archive site Encyclopedia of Saskatchewan, quote, treated the Cree with harshness and arrogance. He was involved in enforced starvation of the Cree people by limiting their rations. The colonizers were also overhunting buffalo in the area, the Cree's traditional protein source. Wanting to ensure his people, nearing starvation, had food, Chief Big Bear knew he had to act decisively. Big Bear organized a group to loot government stables, the Hudson's Bay Company post, and George Dill's store at Frog Lake. On April 2, 1885, a Cree war chief, Wandering Spirit, and a small group of Cree warriors entered Thomas Quinn's home and took him hostage. From a Wikipedia article on the Frog Lake Massacre, quote, Quinn steadfastly refused to leave the town. In response, Wandering Spirit shot him in the head. In the resulting panic, despite Big Bear's attempt to stop the shootings, Wandering Spirit's band killed another 8 unarmed settlers. The 2 Catholic priests, Leon Fafard and Felix Marchand, Fafard's lay assistant, John Williscroft, as well as John Gowanlock, John Delaney, William Gilchrist, George Dill, the store owner, and Charles Guin. This caused trouble for the Cree in the area with the Canadian government. According to onionlake.ca, the federal government refused to recognize a chief for these 2 bands until 1914, when they were told to amalgamate as the Onion Lake Band. End quote. Currently, the Onion Lake First Nation has educational facilities, a modern health center, and indoor-outdoor sports facilities. There are both band-owned and privately owned businesses on reserve, providing the community with essential services and employing both residents and non-residents. Currently, 2,408 of the band's 4,003 members live on 57,737.5 hectares of reserve land, situated 50 kilometers north of Lloydminster. The Onion Lake Reserve straddles the Saskatchewan-Alberta border, making it Canada's only border Cree nation. Growing up, Daleen was taught this story and others. From Daleen's story on nwac.ca, quote, as a girl, Daleen spent time in both Saskatoon and her home community of Onion Lake. Her extended family was very involved in her life. They taught her Cree greetings, beadwork, and how to make bannock. Daleen was particularly close to her grandmother, or Kukum, in Cree, and Herb recalls how little Daleen Sco, meaning Daleen woman in Cree, loved to recount every detail of their time together. As an infant, Daleen was given a Cree name in a traditional ceremony and was later dedicated in the church. End quote. Daleen's parents wanted her to grow into a well-rounded woman and encouraged her participation in sports, arts, and other activities. From nwac.ca. Quote, she took ballet lessons, swimming lessons, skating, piano, gymnastics, acting. She tried a bit of everything. In high school, Daleen became involved in drama and speech writing. She was a very good actress and quickly developed a love for drama and the arts. She was also involved in modeling and public speaking. End quote. Daleen also had a desire for independence, acquiring work in a restaurant as her first job when she was only 13 years old. later working for a time in a Lloydminster bank while in high school. She showed a strong need to learn, and she was an excellent student, helping her classmates who needed assistance with their schoolwork. This desire to help others learn, as well as their parents' roles as educators, played big parts in Daleen's beginning to work toward her dream job, that of teacher. Although serious about making positive moves in her life, Daleen was also known for her great sense of humor. She loved to make people laugh. After high school, Daleen had taken a course in business administration to help put her through university so she could achieve her ultimate career goals. It was at school in 1997 that Daleen met and fell in love with her future husband, Jeremiah Bosse. On November 21, 2017, as part of the national inquiry into missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls at a truth-gathering process, Jeremiah Bosse spoke about Daleen. He said, quote, "It was Halloween, one of the weirdest nights to meet somebody, I guess, because you're all in costume. I had been out with my sister and one of our family friends, and I was dressed up as this big white ball. It was supposed to be a snowman, and painted my face and my hair white. And that's how I met my future wife, dressed up as a big old snowman, and met her, and we talked and exchanged numbers." End quote. It was Daleen who later called Jeremiah, and they got to know each other a bit. But it was weeks later, at a chance meeting at a nightclub, when things heated up between the couple. Through tears, Jeremiah told the inquiry, quote, "And I just remember her smile. The first thing I seen was her smile. She had such a big, bright smile on her face, and I didn't think I was going to cry right away, but I just remember her always being happy. And I miss that. I do. I miss that a lot. But now, I wish, there was a way I could see that smile one last time." End quote.
I feel so badly for this guy.
Totally.
I was looking at a picture of Daleen this morning, just sort of staring at it with her looking back.
Yeah.
And she has this lovely hairdo. I'm such a gay man. I'm like, her hair was great.
You're like Jonathan Van Ness.
But she's like, her face is framed with this lovely hairdo. She has this great smile.
Yep.
And I'm staring at her and I'm like, she's just like, she looks like this friendly person that would have been like a great coworker I would have worked out with, or as a friend or something.
Sure.
She just looks like such a nice person.
Well, I think who she was, who a lot of these people are, get lost in the stories about what happened to them.
Right, because this is a missing, murdered Indigenous woman.
Right.
But it's not. It's Daleen.
That's right.
It is this individual human being. And the news just kind of so often just creates...
Well, this is why I am so happy that I found that website, the Native Women's Association of Canada.
It's a good website.
Because they intentionally tell the stories of these people without much dialogue about the individual that did it at all.
It's about the person.
It is about them as a human being. This is a human being.
I know, and it's I'm just staring at a picture and this, me, Mike. Like doing research for these shows is always so hard.
Yeah. Because
it's not just some news story. We're digging in a bit and trying to understand them as human beings. And it's hard sometimes. It really is.
And this is the thing that I want this show to always sort of strive for, is to remind listeners that, true crime as a genre doesn't necessarily always do a good job of this. No. It's frustrating at times to be painted with that brush.
It's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like people who have never listened to Dark Poutine or have never
looked into
the show at all.
Judge you.
Will come at us.
Yeah.
Saying, "Oh, true crime is a horrific thing." We have been guilty of some real faux pas over the years.
When we first started.
Yeah. But as I grew in my understanding, I've grown, I think, as a human being in trying to approach these things in a more sensitive way.
Yeah.
I struggle with true crime a lot. I really do, as a genre.
It's so strange, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. I struggle with it in a big way.
Well, I think, when you start, you probably didn't think you're going to struggle, but as you get into it and you start knowing these people through the voices of their relatives and their friends.
Yep.
I think it kind of hits home. Like I said last week, with the Donnelly one, it's 142 years ago. I still feel bad for those people, right? Because you start to understand them. And, Daleen seemed like a great woman, right? So it's not just this wash of, a First Nations woman. No, her name was Daleen.
Yeah.
Right?
And her husband loved her.
And her
parents loved her.
And she was doing stuff with her life. She looked great, Yeah. Fantastic. She seemed like such a lovely woman.
Daleen and Jeremiah were engaged on Valentine's Day in 1998, married in 1999, and their daughter Faith was born in 2001. Jeremiah spent some time on family leave from his job with the school board after Faith's birth, so Daleen could attend the University of Saskatchewan, where she continued taking courses and focusing on a degree in education. Everyone who knew Daleen saw that she was a natural educator and knew that one day she would make a fantastic teacher. Daleen was just beginning her 4th year of university in the spring of 2004. On the afternoon of May 18, 2004, Daleen and a friend attended First Nations Assembly meetings in downtown Saskatchewan. While at the meetings, Daleen ran into some friends from Onion Lake whom she hadn't seen in a while. The group made plans to grab some dinner and go out for a few drinks that evening at Jack's nightclub. But first, Daleen went home to change and help 3-year-old Faith get into her bath. Daleen told her daughter to be good and that she'd see her the next day. Daleen said goodbye to her younger brother Dana and his pregnant girlfriend who were staying with them at the time. She gave Jeremiah a hug and a kiss, telling him that she'd see him late tonight or in the morning if he'd gone to bed before she got in. There's nothing at all unusual or worrisome about Daleen's behavior at that time. This was the last time that Jeremiah recalled seeing Daleen, as she got into their only car, their white Chevy Cavalier, and drove off. Jeremiah thought it was strange when he woke up alone in bed the next morning. He presumed that maybe not wanting to drive home after drinking, perhaps Daleen had spent the night with some friends. Jeremiah was starting to become concerned as the day wore on, and he had not heard from Daleen. He had to work that afternoon, and as Daleen was not home by supper time, he had to leave work and pick Faith up from daycare to take her home. Dana, Daleen's brother, had agreed to take care of his niece at Daleen's home as Jeremiah had to return to work. Jeremiah started calling around to friends and some family. No one had seen Daleen since the night before. Jeremiah's concern was growing. He called the police when he got home from work. Jeremiah later told the National Inquiry, quote, "The police kind of seemed to brush it off like it was not important. And then I asked, well, how long do I have to wait until she's considered missing? And they said, well, usually it's about 24 hours and we'll send somebody to talk to you either tonight or first thing in the morning. And they said, by morning, maybe she'll call you," end quote. There had been some personal trauma recently. According to court documents, quote, Daleen and Jeremiah had lost a baby in February 2004, and Jeremiah observed that the miscarriage caused Daleen to change. She would go out and come back sometime later, but she would always phone and let Jeremiah know where she was. In describing their relationship, he said, quote, "We were happy," end quote. Jeremiah didn't want to worry Pauline and Herb needlessly, so he decided to wait to tell them that Daleen was missing. He went to bed again alone for the second night, but was unable to get much sleep, of course. A police officer came by the next morning to ask some questions about Daleen and for a description of her. It was after the cop left that Jeremiah called Herb and Pauline to tell them that Daleen was missing. Herb was initially angry with Jeremiah, admonishing him for not calling them right away. Pauline and Herb drove to Jeremiah and Daleen's house right away, and Daleen's parents and husband went to the police station to file a formal missing persons report on Daleen Kay Bosse. The officer there talked to them about reasons why a person might willingly go missing, to which Jeremiah said none of these things fit with Daleen. Regardless, cops told the family to wait and that Daleen would probably show up or contact them soon. According to NWAC.ca, quote, in the 2007 documentary Stolen Sisters, Sergeant Phil Farian attempts to explain the Saskatoon Police Service's response by saying, quote, "Because right off the bat you would say, well, there's no reason for my family member to leave, so it has to be criminal. Someone has taken her. It has to be. And yet oftentimes it is not. And sometimes people go away and come back," end quote.
Yeah, But,
Right.
right? There's also over 200 unsolved cases of missing and murdered Indigenous women.
Many more than 200.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah.
It's a lot, right?
Yes.
And Aboriginal women represent something like 10% of all females murdered in this country.
Oh, goodness.
And
Yeah.
are only like 3% of the population.
Yeah, right.
So a much higher rate. So all of this sort of, oh, people often go missing. It doesn't mean something was wrong. Yeah, but start looking at patterns, guys,
Mhm.
right? And maybe jump on it faster when statistically there's some issues.
Well, I think this is what the inquiries have been about,
Yeah.
is to look at why
Yeah.
this is happening and what we can do differently, because there are lots of recommendations.
Well, first of all, think of people as human beings.
There is that.
Mm.
It was Daleen's family and friends who had to step up to look for her. Jeremiah intimated his experience over the next few days to the National Inquiry. He said, quote, "And you know, day 3 and day 4 go on and the Muskego family pulled together. There's tons of help come in. My house was full of family members for 2 or 3 weeks. People took time off work to come help search for her, and this is just family," end quote. Police also began talking to Jeremiah as though he knew more than he did. The whole family was becoming frustrated with the lack of police interest in helping to find Daleen. It was tough on Jeremiah trying to juggle the search for his missing wife with work and caring for a 3-year-old little girl. Jeremiah said that it was the family doing most of the police work themselves, running down Daleen's friends. The family put up scores of missing posters with Daleen's photo and description. Eventually, a $5,000 reward was offered for information on her disappearance, and this later ballooned to $10,000. The posters read, "Missing, Daleen Kay Bosse, Muskego. Aboriginal, 5 foot 5 inches tall, approximately 170 pounds. Wears glasses, age 26, member of the Onion Lake First Nation. Last seen by her family May 18th, 04 in Saskatoon." Calls began coming in from as far away east as Montreal and from Vancouver in the west, but there was nothing concrete. At one point, a cousin called Jeremiah. He had spotted a car that looked like the Chevy Cavalier that Daleen had been driving. Jeremiah called police to verify the license plate, but somehow there was a mix-up, and the officer said that the plate given to them did not match the one they had on file. This mistake would later prove costly, as it was determined that this might have been Daleen's car, and quite possibly the person behind the wheel was the man who had, unknown to the family at the time, killed Daleen. On June 4th, 2004, 2 weeks after Daleen disappeared, Jeremiah got a phone call from a friend who'd been helping to search for her. The man believed he had found the car that Daleen had been driving in Sutherland, a neighborhood in central Saskatoon. Jeremiah later testified, quote, "And I phoned police. I said, this is urgent. I said, my stolen car has been found. My wife was in that car, missing. I said, how soon can you have a car? Oh, well, we'll have somebody there as soon as possible." That was the attitude I got. And I was like, are you kidding me? I could be there in 10 minutes, 15 minutes tops. I got in my car. I actually sped over there, hoping police would actually chase me to get somebody there on time because this was urgent to me. I beat the police by about 25 minutes before they showed up at that location, and there was no urgency, end quote. Jeremiah noted to the officer that it was definitely his car, and that peering through the windows, he'd noticed some things seemed to be missing from inside, the steering wheel cover and the floor mats. The police took the car and held it for a couple of weeks, losing track of it at one point and then returning it to Jeremiah, seemingly untouched. Jeremiah just went back to using the car for the next 9 months. Police were again focusing attention on Jeremiah, interviewing him again and again. And only then, after he'd been driving the car for 3/4 of a year, did they want to perform forensic tests on the car, which Jeremiah and some other people thought odd. Police did indicate that they had someone else they were looking into, Douglas Richard Hales, a bouncer at Jack's nightclub who people had seen Daleen Bosse in the company of on the day she disappeared. But that was about it. That was all they knew about that. The mounting pressure was affecting Jeremiah mentally and emotionally, and over the next few years he went through a lot of upheavals in his life. Herb and Pauline, meanwhile, were so frustrated by police inaction that they hired a private detective to help them. That investigator spoke to everyone who might have seen Daleen in her travels that evening, including the police's #1 person of interest, Douglas Richard Hales. In the months after her disappearance, while she was still missing, Daleen's parents, Herb and Pauline, also spoke with Métis feminist filmmaker and associate professor at the University of Victoria, Christine Welsh, for her documentary, Finding Dawn, that was focused on the epidemic of missing or murdered Indigenous women in Canada. Pauline Muskego told Welsh that till January of 2005, the police simply refused to believe that Daleen was anything more than a person who may be willfully missing. Daleen's mom and dad said that they were told by police that missing people will often contact family during the holidays. When Daleen neglected to call home between Christmas 2004 and New Year's 2005, only then were they willing to upgrade Daleen's disappearance to a criminal investigation. Daleen's family, of course, knew better, but they had to wait more than 6 months before the case was considered worthy of more attention by investigators. To filmmaker Christine Walsh, Daleen's mother Pauline said that Daleen's disappearance, quote, is more a priority to police now, and we're thankful for that. But we just wish that we would have had more help from them to begin with. We don't want to say anything that might jeopardize the search that is going on right now. We don't want to make anyone look bad. We just want to find our daughter, end quote.
See right there, Mike. There's a level of class and perseverance and determination there.
Right?
She was obviously probably upset with the way things had gone down with the police.
In the video that I watched with her, you could see the level of frustration and fear.
But she's not like dumping on anyone. She's like, okay, fine. Let's move on because I want to figure out what happened.
Right.
Right? That takes, I don't know, we use the word class. I'm not sure what it is. Or there's just sort of an intelligence and just wanting to get to the answers and there.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
It's maturity as well.
Yeah.
In the first weekend in May 2005, almost a year after Daleen's disappearance, police began searching a rural area where investigators believed Daleen might be discovered. They invited press to a media conference on the site. When asked by reporters why it had taken so long to expand the search for Daleen, police claimed that in the early investigation there had been sightings and that, quote, various people believed that Daleen was still alive and, quote, did not want to be found. Although police admitted they had been unable to substantiate the sightings, as Daleen's family had indicated, officers thought she might reach out at some point, and this is why they were not as active as they could have been. As well as police and other professional searchers, the people looking for Daleen at the rural site included friends and family of Daleen's and members of the indigenous communities around the prairie provinces. There was no sign of Daleen. It would be more than 4 years until Daleen's family would find out what happened to her. They'd been working hard through various vigils, walks, media involvement, and other events to keep her name in the public consciousness the whole time. And we will take a break right here.
Hey, it's Kaylee Cuoco for Priceline. Ready to go to your happy place for a happy price? Well, why didn't you say so? Just download the Priceline app right now and save up to 60% on hotels. So whether it's Cousin Kevin's Kazoo Concert in Kansas City, go Kevin, or Becky's Bachelorette Bash in Bermuda, you never have to miss a trip ever again. So download the Priceline app today. Your savings are waiting.
Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
If you're looking for a smoking gun, I can absolutely guarantee you will not find it.
In October 2001, a series of letters filled with a deadly powder called anthrax were dropped into the U.S. mail system. What started as an unprecedented case turned into an unsettling mystery. Who sent these deadly letters? And why? From Campside Media and Sony Music Entertainment, I'm Josh Dean, and this is Cover Up Season 4, The Anthrax Threat. Available now.
And we are back. Matthew, your thoughts?
Yeah. Thoughts?
Yeah.
Frustration, Mike.
We were talking about this before the episode, and you mentioned like every one of these episodes you feel frustrated about.
I get so upset with these episodes.
Mm-hmm. But guess what? I'm glad, because it indicates to me that you are a human, feeling, thinking being.
Yeah.
I know some people who actually will skip over one of these episodes because they don't want to hear it.
It's important. The reason why you're doing these is because they need to be heard.
Mm-hmm. And there's going to be more.
And it's frustrating because it's like time and time and time again.
Mm-hmm.
You like when I was reading the script, I'm like, oh, again.
Yep.
This happened to a First Nations woman again.
Yep.
The family was treated this way again. The
Yep.
mistakes were made again.
Mm-hmm. And I think this is part of...
Sorry, I'm getting really raw.
No, you
here.
don't need to apologize.
Yeah.
I think this is part of why we need to talk about it, because if it's happening again and again and again, and we can show that there's a pattern, something is going to happen. People are going to become aware of it and say, wait a minute, something is going on here.
Yeah.
You know, like I say, we've had inquiries. We're having recommendations come out of those inquiries. Some of them are being implemented. But we need to keep talking about this stuff. It's part of what I can do for reconciliation.
Mm-hmm.
If I can make a difference in any way by us having a conversation about this, by us maybe enlightening one individual about this, we are doing something good.
Yeah.
On August 10th, 2008, Chief Weghill of the Saskatoon Police Service requested a meeting to inform the family of new information they had received about Daleen. Daleen's family was told that she was dead. She had been murdered, and her body had been found after a man named Douglas Richard Hales admitted to the killing in a Mr. Big Sting operation, which led him to showing police where he'd disposed of Daleen. Police kept the details of the state of Daleen's remains from the family at this point, only indicating that she'd been found. It wasn't until the next day when Hales was in court to face his charges, first-degree murder and indignity to a human body, that Daleen's family heard that her body had been burned after her murder. Bones and her wedding rings were all that were left of the beloved mother, sister, and auntie.
So is this normal?
I don't know. And if it is, it shouldn't be.
Did the police not tell the family this information that would be really upsetting until they're in the court for legal reasons?
For legal reasons. I don't know.
Okay.
You would think that you would be able to tell the family that there was going to be a charge of indignity to a human body and the specifics of that.
To have a family sitting in a courtroom and it's just blurted out there versus, that's something I would work up to.
Right.
Or I'd sit them down and slowly work up to it because it's horrifying.
Instead of just bashing them with it.
In quote, a public space.
Right.
Yeah.
That's probably something that there should have been a social worker or somebody sitting with them and having this conversation.
Think of someone you loved if they're murdered and you're just sitting in a court, Mike, and this just comes out.
Mm-hmm.
Like the first time you've heard it?
Right. Well, that is a legal question with a lot of this stuff. They can't get into how, what, or why with the family because it may leak out into the community and therefore may jeopardize the case. But this is a different thing. He was being charged with this, which is going to be public anyway.
The day before, you think somebody can sit the family down and go, hey, guys, so I have to share something with you to prepare you for tomorrow.
Right. Yeah. It's very insensitive.
Police had been interested in Hales since early on in their investigation into Daleen's disappearance. According to court documents, Daleen was last seen at Jack's on May 18th and 19th, 2004, a Tuesday evening, and she apparently had come by herself. Hales had been working at Jack's for a short time as a doorman and a bouncer and was working that evening. As things were winding down at the bar, a co-worker of Hales, Sean Polyuk, noticed him speaking with a dark-haired girl, nicely attired in what looked like a black jacket. The woman danced and drank, leaving the club with Hales near closing time. Sean Polyuk later identified Daleen Kay Bosse as the woman he'd seen leaving the bar with Hales. And there was more information from court documents. On that Tuesday evening in 2004, Jacqueline Clark was working at Jack's and was asked by her boss if she could give a bouncer, Doug Hales, a ride home to Sutherland. That evening, she observed a lady of short stature wearing a skirt and nylons with black heels. She thought the lady was overdressed for hip-hop night, almost as if she was going somewhere else. She was smiling and having fun, but was quite intoxicated. Ultimately, she was asked to leave, and the witness noticed that she was speaking with Hales. She said Hales continued to work after the lady left, and towards closing, she asked him if he needed a ride home, to which he replied, "No, I'm going to a party." End quote. As the missing posters had gone up around the city, one was placed in Jack's nightclub. Another co-worker, Sam Kerr, asked, "Wasn't that the girl you were with?" And Sean Polyak also commented, "Isn't that the one you brought in?" Hales said, "Yes, but I took her home." From court documents, Sam Kerr and his girlfriend, Dawn Langell, were at his Sutherland trailer socializing in the early hours of Wednesday, May 19, 2004, when Hales arrived with a woman who introduced herself several times. It was Daleen Bosse, as Kerr described her as happy, energetic, and looking to party. The two, according to Kerr, went outside a couple of times to smoke marijuana, and ultimately Kerr asked them to leave. During the 30 to 45 minutes they were at the trailer, they were not drinking any alcohol. Kerr also indicated that Daleen was not stumbling around and added, "As a doorman, you don't let a lady leave while drunk." When he saw Hales the next morning, he did not seem intoxicated. Langell recalled that the woman was Daleen Bosse and that she had long hair and glasses. She recalled them drinking at the trailer, although they were only there perhaps 15 minutes. She described the two as drinking, giddy, and flirting. She saw no inappropriate behavior. That was the last anyone other than Douglas Hales ever saw Daleen Bosse. End quote. It was in April of 2005, 11 months after Daleen's disappearance, that police formally interviewed Douglas Hales for the first time in regard to Daleen Bosse's disappearance. Hale admitted, quote, to meeting Daleen on the evening of May 18, 2004 at Jack's nightclub. He said she initially asked him for a light for her cigarette and asked him if he would mind buying her a drink. He told them that he did not have a ride home and that she offered him one. They drove around for a short time and he declined to attend a party on the west side of town when she invited him. They ended up in Sutherland, where he briefly went to his residence at the trailer to change his shoes. The trailer was owned by his friend and co-worker Sam Kerr. Shortly after, he said that he and Daleen had parted company when he left her car and she drove away. He said that he had bought a newspaper and then walked to the trailer. End quote.
So why would it take 11 months for this guy to be properly interviewed?
I don't know. So he was interviewed. They obviously had questioned him before. They had had conversations with him at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
But why on earth it took 11 months for a formal interview is beyond me.
Because this isn't like some huge metropolitan area with so many people that they couldn't figure out who was with whom and who.
Well, they did. They knew right away that he had been in her company.
And she's dead, and they're like...
Well, they didn't know that she was dead,
yeah,
right? They thought she was missing. And then there were people claiming that they had seen her as far away as Vancouver. And so, okay, yeah, well, she's still alive then. Have you verified that? No, but we're just going to believe this guy.
Some rando
in
Vancouver saw First Nations woman.
Yeah.
And called going, I saw her.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
Exactly.
God.
Hales did not offer up anything else of use to the investigators. For more than 2 years, the case dragged on without any further resolution. At the end of 2007, Saskatoon police asked the RCMP for help, and they began a Mr. Big / undercover crime boss operation they called Operation Friendo. From court documents, in this operation, a number of undercover RCMP members posed as members of a criminal organization and worked at winning Hales' confidence. The operation was designed to gradually introduce Hales into the organization, and as part of Operation Friendo, the police engaged him in staged, ever-increasing criminal activities, hoping to convince Hales that he could be part of a very successful clandestine organization with the potential to earn significant amounts of money and be a part of the Brotherhood. Such activities involved illegal firearms, contraband smuggling, credit card fraud, and a culminating incident of significant ostensible violence. The undercover technique calls for the design of what are termed scenarios, much as a serial television show might be scripted. Each scenario is designed to involve the target, which in this case Hales was, to the point where he had a significant expectation that he could participate in an upcoming major operation with the organization, having the potential to earn a great deal of money. To that end, however, he was required to be approved or vetted by the big boss. This person posed as the head of the criminal organization and was universally portrayed as an individual of great power and authority with the ability to reach into almost any segment of society to influence the course of human affairs." End quote. So in the summer of 2008, Hales believed he was working his way up the ladder of that criminal enterprise. He was about to meet the big boss, who was, of course, the undercover RCMP operative, and in those meetings, Hale would be vetted for a bump up and, if successful, involvement in a lucrative criminal job that would pay him a significant amount of cashola.
Okay, we're going to talk about Mr. Big at the end of the show, but
Yes.
what a moron.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm at a loss for words of how stupid this guy is. And also, this really shows his character, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Like, to be so easily roped into, oh, I'm going to be part of like a criminal gang.
Yep.
What a dick. You know what? What upsets me is, you compare him as a human being versus Daleen,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's truly somebody that has life together going to do something taken away by somebody who has nothing to offer.
Nothing to offer, yeah.
Right?
During a car ride with an operative, a newspaper with an article about Daleen Bosse's disappearance was placed on the seat next to Hales. Hales read the paper and was overheard by the operative giggling while he read the article about Daleen and another missing woman. Hales spoke to the operative about the women in the article in derogatory language. The car ride took Hales and the operative to visit a woman who was pretending to be the operative's girlfriend and who was on the run from him, and they were going to confront her and teach her a lesson. With Hales outside, the pair faked a violent confrontation, and the female operative was laid down on the floor amid a pool of fake blood. Hales saw the woman there briefly, looking badly beaten and possibly dead. After the setup, he and the male operative left. Back in the car, which of course was wired for sound and video, the operative and Hales talked about what had just happened. The operative asked Hales how he would handle a situation like the one he thought he had just been through. Although Hales was cagey at first, the operative pressed him, and according to court documents, quote, observe that until someone has gone down the road of a serious crime implying a homicide, they do not know how they would deal with such a situation. With that generalized statement, Hales responds, well, yeah, I've done it. To which the operative asked, done what? Hales then says, I've killed a hooker. The operative indicates to Hales that he does not need to impress him, after which Hales says, yeah, I'm not lying. It's in the paper. Actually, the one you brought, that they're talking about her 4 years. They never found her because I knew how to get rid of her. I did it the proper way. And I did it all myself because I didn't want to get caught. I could tell the whole scenario if you want. Shortly thereafter, Hales says further, yeah, it had to be done. I finished it. It had to be done. I couldn't let her, like a loose string. I couldn't let her just go away with a beating. I had to. I got rid of rage out on that. I don't feel sorry. She deserved every bit of it. End quote. I'm going to break into my own script here and just say, I have a problem with him painting her as a sex worker. There's no evidence that she was or that she was doing that. It is just him stripping this dead woman of her dignity.
Mm-hmm.
It's another way for him to minimize what he did to her.
That's all he's doing.
Right?
It's all he's doing. And these people like this, it's like, oh yeah, she was this or she was that and I killed her. Yeah, whenever somebody is like obviously caught out and trying to minimize, I just completely and utterly ignore what they say because nothing they have to say I'm interested in.
Yeah. Consider the source.
Consider the source.
Yeah.
He's sullying her name,
mm-hmm.
and he's the moron who wants to be Mr. Big Murderer. So,
right.
Period.
Hales then admitted to having put a pillow over Daleen's face before he stomped on her head outside her car so the act wouldn't leave any evidence on his clothing. In an interview with the Big Boss on August 7, 2008, Hales talked more about the incident. He was claiming that Daleen was a sex worker, of which there was no evidence. He claimed that he paid her to have sex with him. He said, quote, "We got drunk, and she didn't fulfill what I wanted her to do, and I was pretty upset at the time, and I drove her out to the bush, and I choked her, and after she was unconscious or dead, I'm not sure, I dragged her out into a pile, and I started her on fire. I grabbed whatever I could in the area from the car, whatever, paper, anything that burned to help burn, make sure it was on her. I then cleaned out the car. There was some floor mats, seat covers, a steering wheel cover." The Big Boss later asked, "So you decided you were going to kill her before you went to that spot?" To which Hale replied, "Yes." Hales then directed the Big Boss and another operative to the spot where he had left Daleen's remains. With his confession, a warrant for Douglas Richard Hales' arrest was drawn up. He was taken into custody and cautioned in a Home Depot parking lot. Hales was saying he didn't want to talk at all, but police artfully navigated him into eventually speaking with them. Hales backpedaled on the confession at first, claiming Daleen had died of alcohol poisoning and he'd burned her body in a panic, not wanting to be blamed for her death. Eventually, when pressed with the evidence, Hales admitted to having manually strangled Daleen in the car after he says she laughed at him when he was, quote, unable to perform. It is unclear whether Daleen was sober enough to have given any kind of informed consent to Hales. As she is not here, we only have his rather spurious version of events. Regardless, Hales did again admit to having put a pillow over Daleen's face before stomping her to death and then burning her body. In 2014, Hales, who'd pleaded not guilty, was tried for Daleen's murder, and the Mr. Big evidence figured prominently. The verdict was put off and the defense pushed for a mistrial, asked for the trial to be reopened following a Supreme Court ruling on the admissibility of Mr. Big evidence, but Justice Gerald Albright dismissed both requests. Albright outlined the Supreme Court ruling as he read his verdict. He said the Mr. Big sting confession and evidence were admissible in Hales' case. Hales was found guilty of second-degree murder and offering an indignity to a human body in the death of Daleen Bosse. Justice Albright handed Hales a 25-year sentence with no parole for 15 years. Hales appealed his conviction. In an unusual move, a camera was allowed in the courtroom for the appeal proceedings taking place in 2015.
Do you know why there is a camera? I thought that was illegal here in Canada.
Well, I think it's in Saskatchewan. They were doing, I mentioned it, it's part of a, I didn't mention it. Okay. It was part of it's part of a pilot project that they were doing at the time to better communicate a decision. Mm-hmm. So rather than rely on people in court who are reporters or media,
then taking their spin on it.
Right.
Just giving it directly to
Here is exactly what was said.
So it was just the announcement of the decision.
That's correct.
Okay. Probably makes sense to me, right? Because it's like straight from the mouth of the courts who's deciding it, so we can see what they're saying.
Exactly.
Okay. Nothing wrong with that.
Although the video of the hearing is available on YouTube, much of it is inaudible. Sadly, I can't clean it up enough to play it for you here. Justice Jackson was not mic'd during her oral delivery of the Supreme Court's verdict, and a microphone was placed far away from her by a member of the press. Regardless, I will read a large portion of that decision now. Justice Jackson said in part, quote, "We are unanimous in our verdict. As is our usual practice in preparation for today's appeal hearing, we reviewed all of the material available to us that is relevant to the appeal. Ms. Jasper, Hale's lawyer, on behalf of the appellant, has put forth 3 grounds of appeal. We have considered those closely as represented in the appellant's factum and by virtue of your arguments today. In none of these grounds do we see a basis to intervene with the decision of Justice Albright. In our view, he committed no reversible errors of fact or law. Furthermore, the verdict under Section 235 of the Criminal Code RSC 1985 CC 46 is not unreasonable and is not unsupported by the evidence. Indeed, the evidence against the appellant we find is overwhelming. The case against the appellant is composed not solely of admissions made in the context of the Mr. Big operation, but rather it is supported by his actions. Among those actions, we would list the fact that he took the undercover officers to the site where the body was found, and he also gave a sworn statement to the investigating officers in Saskatoon. Having regard for all of the arguments and the evidence, we find we must dismiss the appeal. So after 11 years, Daleen Kay Bosse had received justice of a sort, but Jeremiah had lost his wife. Daleen's brothers had lost their sister. Her parents had lost their daughter, and most tragic of all, Faith had lost her mom. Daleen never got a chance to be a teacher. What a waste. I chose to cover this story during my research of another more widely publicized case involving a white woman. I was shocked to discover that this case, no less compelling and in some ways more so, got mentioned in the press 15 times less than that of the other case, so I chose to do this one first. As well, according to the Native Women's Association of Canada, only 53% of murder cases in the NWAC's Sisters in Spirit database have been solved, compared to 84% of murder cases across the country. An RCMP report in 2013 indicated that across Canada between 1980 and 2012, 1,181 Indigenous women and girls were killed or went missing. That number continues to grow, despite the inquiries and other efforts.
I've said a lot about this in earlier episodes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be hard on them. I'm not a police officer. I'm not an investigator.
Right.
But had everyone jumped on this, believed the family, tried to understand what was going on quicker, they wouldn't have needed a big Mr. Big operation, probably.
No, I agree. And also, Jeremiah had someone call him to say, I think I see your car. And there was miscommunication about what the license plate number was. And it turned out it actually was the car.
All these things, right?
Like, they could have had Douglas Hales in custody.
So to me, the whole Mr. Big thing was they kind of forced themselves to get to that point.
And that's what I think, too. I think because it's a tool that is used, maybe Canadian policing has set themselves up to rely on it a little too much.
We can just Mr. Big it later.
Yeah. I don't know if that's. I don't want to say that that's what the police are doing.
No,
right?
Who knows? But I tell you, Mike, one of these times, a court or a Supreme Court's going to chuck out a Mr. Big case because of the Mr. Bigness of it.
Mm-hmm.
And all of these cases are going to...
There's going to be appeals
everywhere. It's
going
to fall like dominoes.
Yeah.
Honestly, you heard it here, folks.
Well...
We're, from Matthew, we're heading for an issue eventually with this.
Yep.
I'm not a Mr. Big fan. Honestly, I'm obviously great this guy got caught.
Yeah.
But, it's dangerous how they're doing
it. It is. I've actually had conversations with lawyers who are defense attorneys that are actively working to have Mr. Big confessions thrown out.
Yeah.
Because they don't feel that they're constitutional.
Yep.
And if that happens, absolutely, we're going to see killers walk free. 100%. Some serial killers might actually be walking around free because...
So, judicial system, if you happen to listen to Dark Poutine...
I doubt it.
Take some advice from Matthew.
Yeah.
Stop doing that.
Yeah, stop it. Did you have any other problems with the case? Like the car? Her car is found. They don't really do any initial forensics on it.
It's just insane. Like, it's this weird laissez-faire kind of... I mean, what else was keeping them busy during this time?
I'm sure there were lots of other things that were going on that the police have more than one case that they're working on every day.
Yeah, I don't want to be...
Yeah, it's best not to bash on them.
No, I'm not bashing on them. It's just distressing. You know me. There's police officers who are good, bad, and ugly like any other human being, right? And I think the majority of people don't want to do a bad job, but when you see this, I just get frustrated.
Yeah. And that's it for Dark Poutine episode 209, MMIW, The Murder of Daleen Kay Bosse. That's right. It's time for voicemails.
you can leave us a message at 1-877-327-5786 or 1-877-DARK-PTN. We'd love to hear from you. Let's see who called us this week. All righty, let's listen to our first voicemail.
Hi, Mike and Matthew. My name's Emily. I'm currently living in Ottawa, but I'm originally from southwestern Ontario in a tiny town called Drumbo. It's like 50 kilometers from London. So when I hear Matthew speaking about southwestern Ontario, it just brings such joy to my heart. I just finished the episode about the Black Donnellys, which if you're from southwestern Ontario, you probably went on a school field trip to the Lucan Museum, which I definitely did at a very young age. I mean, I think I was 12. So to learn about this massacre was very interesting. Now, that being said, it was definitely biased against the Donnellys. So I have this strange fascination with this case. And you did such justice to it. I just really love it. And you don't often hear commentary on it where the Donnellys aren't seen in like a totally negative light. So I just really want to say thank you for that. I also want to say thank you especially to Matthew for shedding the light on the darkness that is southwestern Ontario, and that it is a strange, dark, beautiful, weird, problematic, awful, and amazing place. It's somewhere that I will probably never live again for many, many, many reasons, but I am somehow proud to say that it is my home. Mike, I just finished your book not too long ago, and it is beautiful. I cannot wait for you to write a second one. Please tell me you're writing a second one. Again, I really appreciate the way that you shed light on many aspects of cases that don't necessarily get covered by other podcasts or true crime documentaries. So I just really want to say thank you for that. So anyway, I hope you guys have a great day. Go shit in your hat. Thanks, guys.
Well, wow. How about them apples?
Drumbo, that's near Woodstock.
Woodstock, Ontario, yeah. I'm glad that she enjoyed our Donnellys episode. And I thought, yeah, like everything that I've read about the Donnellys up to this point was totally biased against them and painted them as evil and demonic.
Yeah, that's what happens.
It's ridiculous. Yeah. Like they weren't the ones who murdered, like they weren't the ones who went and murdered an entire family. It was that family that was murdered.
Well, I think, what do we call it these days? Victim shaming or something?
Right.
Victim blaming.
Victim blaming. Yeah.
Right? Like they are dead, right?
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Let's listen to another one. Oh, dear.
Hi, Mike and Matthew. This is Darcy calling from Lucan, and I just listened to the Donnelly episode. You just mentioned that there's a hockey rivalry from Strathroy to Lucan in the 80s, and I wanted to let you guys know that that's still going strong. I have 3 boys in hockey right now, and yeah, Strathroy is pretty much their enemy there. Yeah, anyways, that was a good episode. I always enjoy hearing everyone's take on the Donnelly cases. And yeah, go shit in your hat.
Well, thank you so much.
Thanks, Darcy.
That's great.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's been 40 years, and there's still that sort of hockey fights between Lucan and Strathroy.
Back home, it was Chester and Bridgewater High School, but now Bridgewater's at junior high, so I guess that wouldn't be. But now I guess it would be Parkview and Chester. There'd be big scraps.
Yeah.
I remember someone actually getting into a fight in the men's room at a Chester Bridgewater hockey game. I was there.
Right. Did you cause it?
I did not cause it, but there was someone in the bathroom who may or may not have peed on one of the Chester fans whilst standing at the urinal.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Anyway, so bad things happen.
Thanks, Darcy.
In hockey. Here's another voicemail.
Hey guys, this is Rachel calling from Collingwood, Ontario. I just wanted to say that I love the show and have been listening for several years. Kind of a funny story, but not really funny. But a couple of years ago, my husband and I were driving through Vancouver to go to Whistler on our honeymoon. And we were listening to the Babes in the Woods podcast. And coincidentally, as we're driving through, we realized we were in Stanley Park as we were listening to the podcast, which was kind of creepy, but kind of funny in the same way. I don't know. I'm sure you guys have heard on recent events in the last couple of weeks that they think that they've actually found the identities of the two boys that were in Stanley Park, David and Derek, through genetic testing from one of the descendants of a supposed sister that the boys had. I think it would be great if you guys could do like an updated episode to that case. It's just such an important case in Canadian history, especially for BC history, that's over 70 years old. And I think it's just amazing that technology and science has brought us the identities of these unnamed boys after so many years. Keep doing what you're doing. I love the show. And have a great day, guys. Bye.
Well, thank you so much. I don't know if we have to do an update to the Babes in the Woods episode because you just did it.
Yay.
So, no, I am looking at a different way to maybe approach that. If there's an update at all, we'll keep you posted.
Yeah.
But
thanks for the call from Collingwood.
Yeah, but it is not, they think that. It is absolutely sure that. That's the way this DNA works. DNA is
so
not.
They did figure out.
Yeah,
who the boys are.
they know who these young fellows were.
Yeah,
and it's very interesting that the mother, people are saying, well, that doesn't sound like something that she would do. I don't know. I guess more shall be revealed over time. Yeah. I'm sure, but as she's passed away, you can't ask her that question.
Yeah,
you know, so. It's interesting. It's an interesting case, and it's one that I'm glad is solved, finally. Okay, let's listen to one more voicemail.
Hi there. I'm just calling from a small town in Manitoba. It's called Rivers, and my name is December, like the 12th month. I'm just calling because recently I have learned that my husband's great-grandfather was a Bernardo child. Or they're also known as immigrant children or home children, and they were children taken from Europe that were considered unfit to be with their parents and brought to Canada and used as pretty much slave children. And I thought maybe that might be something you guys would like to talk about. So, if you do, that'd be great. Thanks.
That is a weird thing to talk about. Yeah.
It could be an interesting episode.
I think so too, and it's one that I've kind of been bashing around in my head.
Yeah, we've
since
spoken
I learned
about it a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Because it's something that you don't hear very often.
Yeah. But anyway, thanks for bringing that to our attention, and it's interesting that, her husband's grandfather, I think she said, was. Wow. So, again, here we are. There are real people behind all of these stories. And that's why I love this voicemail aspect that we have on the show, because we get to hear from real people. It's not just a story.
Some of them are mean to us as well.
Well, the mean ones we don't play. And the mean people can go take a big old shit in their hats.
Yeah, Heathers.
What's that?
Heathers.
Oh, Karens.
Yeah, but Heathers before their Karens were called Heathers.
Karens and Chads. Anyway, that's it for this week's voicemails. Again, you can leave us one at 1-877-327-5786 or 1-877-DARK-PTN. We'd love to hear from you, even if it is just to say hi and to tell us to go shit in our hats. If you're stumped for what to chat with us about, a quick story is welcome. And on to patrons. Look at that. Our first patron has re-upped her patronage with us.
Yay.
And her name is Kathy Lemanis.
Hi, Kathy Lemanis. We
Yes,
know you.
We know her very well. And Kathy actually does the books for Dark Poutine.
So she's recognizing, oh, God, we got to up these Patreons.
So you guys are in such poor shape that the bookkeeper has to help you out. So we know where she is and what she does because she helps us.
So can I do a little ad for Patreons here?
Sure.
I recently read that Reba McEntire's worth $95 million.
Right.
And I think we need to close the gap for Mike here by having just a little bit, $95 million versus We need some donut money and Patreon. We're not asking much.
I'm not at zero because I don't have any debt in my life, but I'm not anywhere near $95 million. I'm not near $1 million. I'm not near $100,000.
Dude.
I'm not near $50,000.
I think I have $50 in my bank account today.
Yeah. Anyway. So thank you so much, Kathy, for stepping up. We really appreciate it. The next one we have is from Schererville, Indiana, in the United States. Allison Farn. And what does...
What's Schererville?
Schererville.
Spell that.
Schererville.
Oh, it is Schererville.
Schererville. Yeah. So what does Allison Farn do there in Schererville? And who knows how they pronounce things. I get corrected all the time, and I don't care anymore.
She's NASCAR pit crew.
NASCAR pit crew?
Yeah.
I didn't know they had NASCAR in Schererville.
Well, they have the Indianapolis 500.
Right, they do. But that is not NASCAR.
I know. But, my mind's just clicking here.
And also, you're not a sports person, are you?
I used to watch NASCAR when I was a kid.
You like the rugby, but I know that's because you like the men's bums and the tight shorts.
That's how it started, and then I started to like the game. But yeah, no, NASCAR was we used to go to NASCAR all the time.
I actually like watching racing, but I probably shouldn't go without covering up my ears because my hearing's already poo-pooed.
What?
Exactly. Next we have from Rahway, New Jersey. Hey, I've heard of that place. Kayla Davila. Kayla Davila from Rahway, New Jersey. Hey, she's from Jersey. She probably knows Tony Soprano. If he was a real person, she might know him.
Mm.
But anyway, what does Kayla Davila do there in Rahway, New Jersey?
She's a hit woman.
She's a hit woman.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. What does she hit?
What does she hit?
Raccoons with her car, maybe.
No, leave the raccoons alone.
Right. Raccoons and porcupines, poor things.
Little guys.
They're so slow and stupid.
All I'm saying is if you need something looked after,
she'll take care of it.
She's the one to call.
Does she have like a special method that she does things?
She doesn't talk about it.
I wouldn't either, Next, we have Deborah Ambridge Fisher. And I don't know where Deborah is from. Could be anywhere on the planet or even some other galaxy.
Do you know there's a place I think it's in Simcoe County in Ontario called Nottawa.
Nottawa? Because it's not Ottawa?
It's not Ottawa.
Oh, okay.
So she's from Nottawa. She's from not Ottawa.
Okay.
Nottawa.
And what does she do in Nottawa?
She's a folk singer.
She's a folk singer.
Yep.
Does she have any particular songs that she is famous for or anything like that? Or
yeah, she sings I Could Have Been Miss Punta Blanca with a ukulele.
A ukulele.
Yeah.
My friend Alicia plays a ukulele.
I could have been Miss Punta Blanca.
Well, there you go.
I could have, but I said no thank ya.
Oh, boy. Anyway.
It's a Jane Sibrey song.
It certainly is. I like Jane Sibrey.
She was the
Mimi on the beach, Mimi on the beach.
Yeah, she was good.
Yeah. I miss her, actually. She's probably still kicking around.
She still does stuff. She changed her name for a while.
What did she change it to?
I can't.
Shane Zibbery. This is Shane Gibbery.
It's I can't remember. But anyway, yeah, she changed it.
Interesting. I wonder why. I guess we'd have to ask Jane Sibrey.
Yeah.
That would be a good episode of Dark Routine. We talk to Jane Sibrey about why she changed her name.
Yeah.
I would do that. And that is it for patrons. Let's, drum roll please, let's check to see if we got any donut money this week. I'm pretty certain that we did. All right, we had one donut money donor this week, and it is Geraldine Ogden, and Geraldine is from Victoria, British Columbia.
Victoria.
Victoria. Thank you so much, Geraldine. What does Geraldine do there in Victoria, Matthew?
She works for Parliament. She's in Parliament.
The legislature?
Yeah, provincial Parliament.
Yeah.
Provincial parliament. Don't look at me like I'm saying it wrong.
It is the legislature.
It's also known as the provincial parliament.
In Ontario.
What? It's not the same here?
No.
They don't call it provincial parliament?
No, we call it a legislature.
Really?
Look at me, School and Matthew. How about them apples?
Wow.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, in Ontario, you are an MPP.
Okay, she's a legislature then.
So she's an MLA is what she would be. A member of the Legislative Assembly.
Is that what they call them here?
That is what they call them here.
She's a MLA.
And I believe in every other province in Canada. I am not 100% sure of that, but other than Ontario, I don't think that there's...
Why is it different in Ontario? Because they think they're the center of everything?
Yeah, right? I don't know. It's the elephant's trunk. So she's an MLA. Well, thank you, Geraldine, and thank you for helping to keep us safe through that pandemic.
Indeed.
Yeah, because that was rough.
I want to move to Victoria.
I love Victoria. I want to move there too. I would love, love, love to live in Victoria.
Geraldine, do you have a room to rent?
There you go.
Thanks to all our patrons and Donut Money donors, past and present, for your generosity. It helps to keep the show going. You can become a patron of Dark Poutine at patreon.com/darkpoutine. For a one-time donation, you can send us donut money via PayPal using our email address, darkpoutinepodcast@gmail.com. If you don't already subscribe to the show, it would mean a lot if you did. You can easily find Dark Poutine on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows. If you haven't gotten yours yet, my book, Murder, Madness, and Mayhem, is available to order via a link on the Dark Poutine website. And speaking of darkpoutine.com, please check it out for show notes and other cool stuff. We'd appreciate it if you took the time to give Dark Poutine a like or a follow on Facebook and Instagram. Most importantly, thank you for listening. And tell your friends about us. Word of mouth is a powerful thing.
Until we return, don't forget to be a good egg and not a bad apple. Bye, everybody.
Goodbye.
Matthew, why did you wait for me there? You uncomfortably just stared at me shaking your head.
I didn't know what to do.
Okay.
I didn't want to say goodbye to everyone.
No. We're not really saying goodbye. We're saying...
See you later till next week.
Yeah, exactly.
See you later till next week, everyone.
See you later.
Be good yapples.
Hi, it's Shauna, and I might be a bad parent because my kids think French fries are vegetables.
Hey, it's Ryan, and I might be a bad parent because I went out for wings when my wife was in the hospital after giving birth.
Johnny here. I might be a bad parent because in my house, the tooth fairy gives pocket change.
But we're not alone. Len emailed us and said his 6-year-old daughter's Tarzan moment going from love seat to lazy boy by curtains made him more proud than any dance recital.
And Andy left his 2-year-old at the rink.
All right, guys, I'm sure we're not alone. Like Andy's kid.
For stories and confessions like this, make sure you check out our podcast.
It's called Bad Parents, and it's available wherever you get your podcasts.
I left a glove at the rink.